Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. Today we're going to take a look at the Viviva Colorsheets, and I showed you these in a couple of other videos, but I thought I would actually use them in a painting today. I like to use them a lot for coloring stamped images, but I wanted to see how they worked as far as doing a painting. So I swatched out the Viviva Colorsheets, and this was the original version they sent like last year, but some of the pages stuck together, and it was a great idea, but it just kind of fell a little short because the pages would stick together if you put them away wet, and there was really no way to keep them open while they were drying. So then they came up with this version, which gives like a little palette where you've got two colors, and you've got this clear kind of plastic paper, two other colors, plus there's little offset indexes on the bottom so you can see what colors you have, so you can flip to them very easily. So this was a much better situation. This also has 16 colors when the original had 12, so they really improved the design, and that's what I swatched out here. I had some people ask me if they were similar to Peerless, and this is what I have for Peerless colors. A girl by the name of Beth Adams made me this palette. She has an Etsy shop, and it has a bunch of different Peerless colors, little like kind of 3/4 inch by 3/4 inch swatches, and I swatched them out here. To me, they feel very much the same as far as quality. There's an awful, I think there might be a little bit more, like if I look at some of these colors on the Viviva sheets, it seems like they're really thick, thickly laid on there, where the Peerless with these like small swatches, I feel like I used up colors really quickly, but there, you know, there's a pretty big size difference there between those two swatches, so it's hard to tell. As far as the ink goes, it seems very much the same. So if you already have Peerless, these probably wouldn't be a big advantage, but if you're trying to choose between the two, they're both good. I do like the little palette here where I can flip through and get colors easily. So I decided I would do a sketch and just kind of paint it for you. I have a little plate here in case I want to do some mixing, and I've got my divided water bucket here and a couple brushes. So nothing fancy, but I did sketch out a peony before I started filming today because I actually was working on something else, but it went terribly wrong, and I'm going to see if I can rescue that painting and then maybe share that with you, but right now it's not looking good. I'm going to start in with the flower, and I think I want to do one of the reds. I do recommend swatching out the colors because they are quite a bit different than what you see on the little indexes here, and I think I'm going to use the deep pink color. You'll notice with this color that it actually changes. It looks like almost corally here, but it actually does shift to a pink as it dries. If you were going to take these on the go, you might be able to use that as a palette, but honestly I think I just put some packing tape over maybe the cover, or bring something that you could mix with, because it is they're really juicy. So what I'm doing is I'm going to go in and add, I also have a paper towel handy. I'm going to add my color in, then I'm going to rinse my brush, and I'm going to spread it out. For crafting, I used a water brush with these, and they worked really well, so you might want to consider that too. But I kind of wanted to paint with these how I usually paint, and I wanted to use just a regular watercolor brush. The colors are extremely transparent. I doubt that they're very light fast, just because they do seem to be more like a dye. Another thing you could do is actually wet an area, and they flow really well. Some people had asked me recently about colors with a really good flow. These, because they're not weighed down with heavy pigments, they do seem to flow really well. I don't know if these are dye based or mineral based, because some of the like swatches look really kind of gritty and thick, even though they paint really well, but it just seems like they're probably a dye base just because of the way they look. I think I like to put them, oops, that's crimson. I think I like to put them down on dry paper and then spread it out. Now the paper you use is going to make a big difference. I was using earlier some fluid paper, but it wasn't the cotton. I don't think it came free with something I bought from Jerry's Artorama, and I was really struggling with that because it's like it sunk into the paper, and then I couldn't do anything to move it. So this is a Strathmore Visual Journal, and I think that this works a lot better because it's got a lot more sizing in the paper. So I feel like that dye is going to sit on top versus going deep into the surface. So here's a wet and wet again. I just wanted to show you that. I'm just trying to decide which I like better, because I am just, you know, these are they're not really new to me. I've had them for a while, but I'm just kind of playing with them. I do think I like putting down the color and then spreading it out. So like the color palette to me reminds me a lot of like my Tombow markers or like the clean color brush pens, any sort of water-based marker. It's got that beautiful, just really crisp look. I'm going to skip over to doing some of these leaves because I'm kind of touching all the petals, so I don't want to go right next door to a petal and have my ink smear across or whoosh across. So I'm going to go to a couple of these shades of green. There's some really pretty greens here. This light green is just, it's almost like quinacridone gold. It's such a pretty green. And I'm just going to, I think, put in like a base of this color and then add some sap to it. So you can see how vibrant these colors are. I was going to do this tutorial as a time lapse, but then I thought, well, it's actually pretty quiet in my house right now, which is surprising for a weekend, so maybe I can actually do it real time. We'll do some glazing in a bit because I think that would be kind of cool to see. I also want to try putting in my darker color first on a leaf and then spreading it out with some of the lighter color. We'll see how that looks. But I feel like I can get a really good illustrative quality with this. And you'll notice the colors, they dry a little different than when they go on wet, so I would definitely recommend swatching out your colors and then seeing you know, how they look. If I want to darken that, I could either use a little Viridian, which is almost like a phthalo green actually. I don't think it's a true Viridian because it re-wets so well. Could put some of that in there, or I could go in with some blue, or I could even go into some of that red if I wanted to try mixing some of that green and red together and get a kind of like a neutral brown color and add that in. Actually, that's real pretty. I like that. I think I'll do the stem in that. So they mix really cleanly because they are so transparent. That's something you'll notice about watercolor. Your more transparent colors are less muddy. They just mix, they give you cleaner mixes. And I think this is a really fun way to bring watercolors on the go. I'm obviously painting in my studio, but I think if you're like somebody who likes to maybe bring a planner around or a sketchbook around, or you like to go stamping at a friend's house and you just want something you can color your stamped images, I think this would be a great bet. I don't know how long these will last if you were doing larger paintings. That's my only concern with that, but they're a lot of fun, and I think I would definitely use them in kind of more of like a convenience portable way. I'm mixing up a little bit more of that darker color, the green and the red. But you can see how easy you can hold this in just one hand and flip through. Which, because it's kind of weird because I'm right-handed, but I hold this in my left hand, but I always mix on keep my mixing palette on my right-hand side, so it's, but it doesn't feel that weird. I mean, it feels fairly natural, actually. The picture I was working on that came out horribly wrong, I think, because I was trying a new technique with the, or a technique I don't do very often with them, and their characteristics did not jive. I'll have to wait and see. I did film it, but I'll have to wait and see how it comes out before I decide whether I'm going to share it or not. I think it's the better, the more I rest my eyes away from it and go back and look at it, the better it looks, like most things. But you know, I could tell tomorrow. Right now, I don't know. So I really like the blending. I think that this would be nice. I bet if you used like a Wink of Stella pen, you could kind of get that similar look to the, you know, some people like to, I do too sometimes, you know, you color with the, like the real brush pens, and then you can like mix it with like a Zig Wink of Stella. That's a really fun technique, and I think that would look really pretty. So if I put that Viridian in there without adding any red to it, it's super, super vivid. So I like to add a little bit of that mixing color that we used. I like to kind of pollinate my colors with other colors that I've used. A little bit of that lighter color. The thing you might want to avoid big juicy brushes on this, because that's another reason I got into trouble with my last one. I was using a brush, Princeton Neptune, which is a really juicy brush, and I got way too much color, and before I knew it, I just had too much color soaked into my paper that I couldn't even get any whites anymore, and I think that's where I started to have my issues. Ooh, that makes a really nice dark. Probably maybe even a little too dark, but maybe if I add it elsewhere, it'll be fine. Blend it with a wet brush. So these paints do stain your paper a little bit more, so if you are someone who likes to lift, you're going to have to plan around your whites a lot more than you would with like another another watercolor, like a traditional watercolor. So you'll want to keep that in mind, because you might find that'll be a little frustrating otherwise. But I like that I can just kind of drip my color in there and blend. Oh, you know what? I think I'm going to get in there and do the center of my flower too before I get too carried away. I want to use some yellows. The yellows, there's one called Flesh. It's really very orange, very kind of yellowy. So, definitely don't go by what the names are called. Go by what they say they are, because otherwise I think you'll end up with some surprises. There's a little burnt sienna here. Burnt sienna and the chrome yellow. So what I'm going to do is actually grab a credit card scraper. Actually, I'll just use the bevel end of this brush. I just want to scrape in those little stamens here, so I get a little texture. I'm using the Mimic Kolinsky. It's a faux fur brush today. I don't want to have anything that's going to hold too much water, because I think I can really make a soggy mess of those paints pretty easily. And now I'm going to go back over to that leaf that I was working on. This takes a second for me to get my bearings on what I was using for colors. So I would definitely recommend planning a little bit. When you first use these, get a sketch done ahead of time instead of just freehanding, because you don't have quite as much versatility or flexibility as in lifting, but it's a lot of fun. And I'll probably tend to use these more for, in my travel journal, or for taking with me when I go to scrapbook somewhere, just because I love having watercolors on me, and that's just such a quick and easy way, and they're fairly inexpensive, so if I was to lose one, I wouldn't be really upset. And I'm going to go back in and work on some of these petals. I'm going to stick with the same color. So I like that I can get quite a variety of shades just with the same color, just by using that same color and diluting it. And it does, if you work pretty quickly, you keep that, just kind of work along that wet edge and drag the color out, you can, blend pretty well. But I think it comes down to what paper you're using too. If you're using a paper that absorbs your ink a lot quicker, it's not going to work as well. So I'd go for a kind of a heavily sized watercolor paper, or a sketchbook that is meant for like mixed media, like the Canson XL I think would work pretty well for that. When I want my darkest color, I pick it right up from the paper. Because you don't have to add a lot of water to these, they'll dry pretty quickly for you, so that's kind of nice. If I was using a water brush, I would just squeeze out the excess and wipe it, and then I would go in to blend it out. But if I'm at home, I prefer to use prefer just to use a regular water bucket. I get a little blending there, but I'm not going to worry about it. Yeah, so this is, I'm just going to finish this pretty much in the same fashion. I think I'll pause the video and then maybe do a little glazing on camera in a minute, because I think this is going to get kind of boring because I'm doing the exact same thing over and over again. So let me finish these petals, and then we'll do a little glazing, and I'll give you my final thoughts on this. Okay, I was practicing mixing some colors for shadows, so I'm using some sap green and some Prussian blue and a little bit of that leftover red that I had, and I'm able to make a nice dark color here, and I'm just kind of layering some of it on top. The glazing, and this could be the paper that I'm using, the glazing actually, I am getting a little bit of like it diluting the ink underneath and giving me kind of like a splotchy result. So I think that I'm just going to be very gentle. It almost acts like the ink in Distress ink pads, where it kind of reacts when you add more water on top. So I'm a little surprised with how like kind of staining the ink is, but it also will react when you add stuff on top. So just kind of keep that in mind. I was very surprised. I thought that it would probably glaze pretty well, but I think I would just kind of leave it for details. So what I think I'm going to do is take just a fine brush and some of that red. I might even mix a little bit of violet into it. Actually, you know what? I'm going to use a little of that Prussian blue because I've already used it and I don't want to introduce anything too new in there. And I think it'll dry a little bit cleaner looking because that red does go much more pinker. And I'm just going to go in and like, oh, that looks almost black though, doesn't it? I'm just going to go in and add a few little details, but I am not going to do too much because I'm not sure if this is going to dry, how dark it's going to dry, I guess, if it's going to mellow out or not. So I just want to put a few little accents. That petal's overturned, so I'm just going to leave that one. But it's definitely a fun product. I love how portable it is, and the person that developed it is actually a medical student in India, and he developed it so that he could have he didn't have any time to paint, and you know, he wanted to have a way to de-stress and paint and have it on the go, and he wanted to be affordable for other people and benefit other people who also felt like they didn't have the time to paint because they could have these very portable watercolors that are just ready to go at any time. You know what? I bet that color would go good in the center. I'm going to show you my rinse water too before we go because it'll prove how transparent these are because I don't have a lot of mud in my rinse water, even though I'm using like red and green, which together they're opposites. They would make kind of like muddy colors. Just want to add a little smidgen more of that red. I bet you could just take like a, I don't know, laminated card and just stick that with your palette to act as a little mixing area. But there you go. I think they're fun. I've enjoyed using them on my craft projects. I think I'll definitely use them more as a like a stamping product rather than a painting product because I have a lot of palettes that I really like. But I'm just going to tip that away from the light. Sometimes red is very difficult to film. But there you can see it. You can see the color sheets here. And I'll put a link in the video description. This is currently an Indiegogo invention, so but you can order it, and then as soon as they're produced they'll ship them out. And I thought it was fun to give it a try. So thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the video description and I'll help you if I can. And if you need other information, you can go to their website and check it out. Oh, my rinse water, I wanted to show you. So all that, let's see, I gotta tip it to the light because I don't know if you can really see. The water there is like, it's still clear, except it's clear and like orange, but it's not like I can see to the like the little rungs in the bottom. I'm not sure if you can or not. And then my clean side is completely still clear. So very, very transparent. If that's your jam, I think you will like these. I just spilt water on, well, we'll see how well it lifts. Let's see how reactive it is, because I just spilt water on there and then I got this really awesome water spot, but there's still the staining behind. So very much like a distress ink for those of crafters out there that know what that is. Very similar type of product. I hope I can fix that to take my thumbnail with. But there you can see the this is the Viviva color swatches there, and this is Peerless. So if you like Peerless, I think you'll like these too. They're very similar, so if you already have Peerless, it's probably going to be almost like a duplicate product for you. But I can also, you know what, oh, I also want to dry this so you can see how it looked when it was dry. It is pretty much yeah, it's pretty much dry. Those two colors mixed into an almost inky black, which is very interesting. And so that's that. I hope you enjoyed this. Please give me a thumbs up if you like my reviews, and until next time, happy crafting.